Hey everyone, welcome to, I almost said Friday. Oh, welcome to Wednesday. It's hump day. I hope you guys are having a good week. It picked back up. We went from crazy, kind of at the funeral home to super slow, and now we're back to crazy again. So it's weird kind of going from one extreme to the other. So it's been keep me on my toes week at the funeral home. But I wanted to go live. I'm leaving later this week, going to Pittsburgh for a couple days for work and filming. Going to be some long days. So I am preparing for very little sleep, but that's okay. So lots of questions that I want to just dive into today. So the first one, we have a recent graduate of one mortuary school down in Georgia. Been watching videos, been an apprentice, and they only they do subclavian, which is the bra strap incision. So you make an incision over here for embalming rather than right up in the neck here. You do it out here so that way it doesn't show. You can also reach two different, kind of like a fork in the road there. You can reach two different areas from that incision. So it is beneficial. Check out my video on bra strap incision. And then the femoral, where he is that he's learning from, which is down in your groin area. His supervising embalmer only uses a heart tap for all of his drainage. No open drainage, no angular forceps, no drain tubes. So some of that may sound all foreign to you. So let me explain. And he wants to know kind of what I think of that. And he's in constant fear. And rightly so. So the heart tap, some people really love it, but it is something that can create a lot of problems for an embalmer as well. So this is when you are embalming, and while you're injecting, instead of draining out of the vein in that same hole, you take the trocar, and some people hook it up to the tube, but I've known people who don't, which makes no sense. So you use the trocar, insert it into the abdomen, and you make one puncture. It's a one shot, because if you make more than one hole, you're kind of screwed. And you're trying to literally just tap the heart. So you want to take the trocar, enter it into the heart, so all of the blood that circulates back through the heart is coming out. So you are literally tapping the heart and sucking out or bringing out all of the blood that goes through there. Some people love it because there's no exposure down on the table of the blood at all. But if you miss that heart, which is not always in the exact same place for every person, you could puncture or rip one of the other major vessels, which means you disrupt your central core. Like in a car, it's like breaking off part of your engine. And so you don't have a closed system anymore. And as his concern is, then you have to do a 6-point injection, which means you raise the 2 here, the 2 here in your wrist, and then the 2 in your groin. So definitely a cause for concern. I think some embalmers think they're super awesome if they do heart taps. It is cool if you can have it happen, because you just hit and all this blood comes out. It's kind of a cool thing. But if you miss, you cause a lot of problems for yourself. So if you're not comfortable, don't do it. There's no huge benefit to it. You can drain the blood out any which way. That is going to pull out maybe a little bit more than just the pressure of injecting will bring out. But if you're not comfortable, don't do it. You are also going to get superfluous blood out during the aspirating. So, 6.5 dozen the other. Who knows? Maybe that guy just wants to look cool in front of you. Maybe, who knows? Who knows? Hey, everybody. Bree is saying, are we waiting for her? Something wrong with the live stream. I am here and I am talking. So there's a lot of people having issues. Wonder what's going on. Some of you are seeing me, some of you are not. So I'm not sure what's going on. Well, I'm going to just keep on because some of you are seeing me, and is it just glitchy? Yeah, not sure what's wrong. I'm just going to power forward then. So next question's up. We've got... You'll have to watch back on the beginning because someone's texting me now what it looks like. So I'm not sure why it's saying that. That's weird. I've already drank most of my coffee, actually. Questions. All right. So I got some questions from Tammy. And she says, in regard to above ground entombment, does the head or feet of the casket go into the crypt first? I hope it makes sense. So it really depends on the cemetery. I think a lot of them will, they choose one way and that's typically how they go. But there's no exact thing, just like putting a casket into a hearse at the end of the service. You can choose whichever way you want. Most funeral homes will choose one way, and that's kind of how they do their protocol. But it doesn't mean that's how it has to happen or how every funeral home does it. So there's no tried and true rule to it. All right, I think you guys, everybody's caught up now. Awesome. All right. I have also noticed that some entombments are lengthwise. If that is the case, is the head to the left of the person visiting the tomb, like the casket would be during the funeral service? Yes, typically that's going to be the scenario, but I can't say that's 100% every single time. Just like where is the headstone, at the head or the foot? It's not always going to be that way. But those long way crypts, which are not as common, but yes, they're going to slide them in, and they're going to typically do head to the one and head to the left as you're looking and feet to the right. Gotta do my L's. This question is in reference to graves like the one Liberace is buried. So go Google Liberace's grave and you'll see exactly what she's talking about. How can 3 caskets fit in the grave that size? According to the inscription, there are 3 people buried there. So just like in a mausoleum wall, those caskets go in like this. That's kind of fun to do with the camera. Wow. They go in like this, and you'll see that is up against a big building. So those are going into the building just a little bit, possibly. I can't see how deep his grave is, but either they're lined up next to each other or they're going into the building. That way is 99% sure what I'm going to guess with that. Some of this stuff is going to be guessing. It's not, I don't know everything about everything when it comes to funeral business. There's probably, more than not that I know. But I can take good guesses. So thank you. I just straightened it today. It needs cut desperately. But it's hard to get in with my hairdresser. All right. So those are Tammy's questions. Yay. Let's do some of your questions. Oh, Stephanie, today is the 11th anniversary of her husband's death. How are you feeling today, Stephanie? Are you feeling like you want to do something to celebrate him and who he was to you, or go visit his grave? What are you feeling? Today is my niece's birthday. It would have been her 21st birthday today. So if you haven't heard the story of my niece, back when I did my 100th video, I've got over 700 now. So it's crazy that it's been that many. But I told the story of her death. Her life was taken. She was 7. So that tells you, how long ago. She would have been 21 today. So today's her birthday. So we ate apple fritters for breakfast because that was her favorite, treat thing kind of over the years. And we're doing dinner tonight for her. In her honor and having a drink for her 21st birthday. Can a husband and wife be buried together in the same casket? Yes. They just have to be large enough casket, like a double casket for them to be in. I love it. It's funny because when I straighten my hair, everybody thinks I got a whole new hairdo, but it's just straightened. Just straightened. So Mike asks, you and I have both been in numerous funeral homes. Have you ever looked around and said to yourself, what the hell were they thinking when they built this place? All the time. However, the biggest problem is that a lot of funeral homes are originally homes. And either they took the funeral home like an old Victorian style and used the rooms as they are, or remodeled a little bit over the years, or they took the original house and built on and built on and built on. And so you have these weird spaces that are not as usable as maybe they were 50 years ago. Back in the 1950s, funerals weren't what they were now. They might have had smaller gatherings, smaller type of things, where now they're much larger, or they need more space for this, that, and the other. So it's different. So what functioned well 50 years ago does not function as well now in a funeral home. That's a big difference, I think, in a lot of the structure of funeral homes and the architecture. Even looking at a funeral home that was built in the 90s, which was like, what? Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's crazy how many years ago that was, 30 years ago. Those are so almost outdated. They're bigger, they're open. Doorways are a big thing. That doorways are not built big enough. There's funeral homes that you cannot get an a wider casket into the funeral home easily. I know some that they have to carry them in through the front door, which means you have to get 8 to 10 people to try to bring the person into the chapel, because you can't go through any door, or ramps are too narrow to even bring them in any other way. So a lot of situations you run into in funeral homes because of size. We are a much larger society than we used to be. So even bariatric wheelchairs that weren't as common years ago are now way more common. Even getting larger wheelchairs for guests to come in is hard. So we do encounter some of those situations. And churches are not built for funerals to bring caskets in. I just had this discussion recently at work, because we go into these new churches, and even though they're new and they've been remodeled, if there's any stairs, they never think about the fact that there's no elevator big enough for a casket. So then we have to have all the pallbearers there ahead of time, because we can't even get into the church. So it's funny how that kind of gets forgotten in the building of churches. What was the worst design element you've seen in a funeral home? What was the best design? So some of that is going to be just functionality of where prep rooms are and where caskets are. So, some of those old buildings, you have either the prep room is in the basement, your casket selection room might be in the basement, and they're not handicap accessible. You can't get families to the selection room, or you can't get them upstairs to the selection room, or even really into the building if you don't have a ramp. And you don't have to build one if you haven't remodeled since all of those things went in. You get grandfathered in. So some of the handicap accessible things, and just having your prep room, your care center, your caskets, everything in one level, where you're not having to go up and down in these old rickety elevators. I got a few videos. I was going to do a video on elevators in funeral homes that we use for bringing bodies up and down and caskets up and down. And I got a couple. A lot of people were like, we don't want OSHA to come yell at us just in case we're breaking some rule. And I'm like, oh my gosh, people. Because there are some crazy setups of just old style, having to hand pull, the lift up and down, all sorts of crazy scenarios. So yeah, those things are some of the worst. Some of the best is when the funeral home is built all on one floor. You have large care centers, large preparation rooms, large areas that you're working in to care for the deceased, not like an old closet that has been turned into a preparation room, which I've been in. So those things I think are probably the big ones. Oh, Pam lost her baby on the 12th of March, 26 years ago, when she was 20 weeks. Pam, you can always go back and do something now. That's never too late. This is a conversation I have with people when they email me and they say, what can I do? They didn't have a funeral for them. You can always do something later. You can always do something for that person. If I think the last one I really communicated with, her cousin died and the family didn't do anything. And the cousin was super special to her and a bunch of people in the area where they lived. And so I said, why don't you plan an event then? Why don't you do a special dinner? Like, what did she like? What did you usually do with her? Plan an event, have everybody bring their favorite photo of her. Have everyone bring a story about her. Have everyone write down 5 words that remind them of her to read aloud during dinner. You can create an event super simple to remember a person. You don't need the casket. You don't need the body. You don't need the urn. You don't need a cemetery. You can create something without anybody's approval and do something for them with a group of friends, with a small group of family. You can do something. And it's important to do something because that life was worth remembering to you. So don't let the structure of having to go to a funeral home, having to go to a cemetery, having to have this big set thing stop you from being able to celebrate and remember them. You guys are sharing lots of losses. Videos of India and American Indians in the YouTube shows attendees lining up to kiss or touch the deceased. You know, there's different cultures where every person walks by and kisses the deceased. It's not like straight across the board that's what you have to do for every single funeral. And it might just be the family. They'll all walk by and place flower petals or flowers or something in with the deceased, and that's kind of their thing. Some churches will have, everyone does do a last walk by. Like, you need to do a walk by. The pastor will stand with a box of Kleenex at the head end of the casket. So as you walk by, you can go ahead and grab a Kleenex. So there's some things, it doesn't mean that that's how everybody in that country or everybody in that tradition does it, but you know, it can be something that they do. Nicole, that's a great question. When did it become so expensive to bury someone? They used to be at home in a box buried in the local graveyard. What makes it a huge industry was in embalming. I don't know that it was embalming because embalming's been around for quite some time. When it became its own more business, because it became more hands-on with, you know, needing a professional and families wanting to be a little more hands-off. When you have a business, you have an overhead, which creates expense and more equipment and more things. Definitely embalming is a section of it, but it's not the large portion. Cemeteries are super expensive to run, to open and close the grave, to have perpetual care. That's all built into the purchase and opening and closing costs, is that grave is going to be taken care of forever. You got to think of that when you're thinking of the costs that come along with the cemetery. You are paying for mowing, weed whipping, all of that forever for that grave space. So it's super cheap, actually, if you think about it. What if you had to pay a mow crew to go mow it yourself? Think about what that would cost. But just cost of everything. About every 15 years, traditionally, cost of funerals double. That's just within the business, what they have figured with the economics of it. You know, every industry has their own double rate, and that's ours. Do funeral directors try to hide wrinkles on an older person? I noticed with my grandma, her wrinkles were gone and the skin fell to her ears. That's just gravity also. If you're laying down, your skin's all going to pull back. So it's just gravity. I don't know if there's any superstition to bad luck of a picture of a deceased. Thank you, Todd. Hey, everybody. Could you do a funeral and an Amish funeral and burial? Do they have their own cemetery? Pat, that's a great question. It's also a huge, broad question. That'd be like, can you do a funeral in American traditions? There's a lot of different variety of what the Amish communities do, depending on their religion. So it could be multiple videos on Amish. Eventually, I want to do a lot of different cultures, a lot of different religions, but doing those videos are going to be really time consuming, quite a bit of travel, and a lot of participants, which is hard to line up. So eventually those will happen. It's going to be lining up a lot of different things beforehand. What would happen if you drain the blood and not do embalming? You're still going to decompose. It doesn't change anything. Carol, I'm not answering your question. I'm just reading them as I see questions pop up. So sometimes you have to repost it if it gets buried, because right now I don't see anything from you besides you saying, why not answer my question? So if you want to repost it, I will try to get to it. How do you desensitize yourself from certain aspects? It just happens over time. Your body assimilates to it. Is it true they dig up graves after a certain time? My brother-in-law told me this not long after I buried my 3-year-old daughter. She died 25 years ago and it hasn't happened yet. Sharon, what country are you in? Do different states have different laws about sprinkling a loved one's ash, their grave plot, instead of burying them? Yes, it's a universal law. You cannot put cremated remains somewhere without the permission of the person that owns the land. You do not own a grave space. When someone is buried there, you have the right for burial at it. You do not own the land. So you have to get permission from the cemetery if you want to scatter cremated remains on a grave. I've been finding you really interesting. How many people are hairdressers? I get a lot of hairdressers and nursing kind of area that like to watch my channel. So how many of you are hairdressers and nurses? What is the polar opposite of a green barrel? A polar opposite, probably just a traditional burial with a lot of concrete and steel that's never going anywhere. Does a hearse handle different from a normal car? Not really. If you've ever driven maybe like a station wagon, it has a really low center of gravity, really wide wheelbase, really travels pretty smooth. Hard to turn, tight turns, but otherwise it's kind of the same. If a family owns plots, can a family take it upon themselves to bury their loved ones bypassing the exorbitant? No, you cannot bury your own person. Funeral homes have to sign a death certificate. There is a huge paperwork trail when it comes to death, and you have to follow those. Otherwise, you're just super illegal. Vivian, do you need certification to be able to do makeup and do hair for deceased? Nope, not at all. I wanted to know, why am I scared of dead bodies? Because my brother-in-law died. I was scared to be around him. What is making me so scared? If you can answer the question, why are we scared of dead people? You are getting the $1 million answer. So it is just a natural, innate thing for us to be frightened by what we don't understand. We will never understand death until we are dead. There is no understanding it. We fear it. It is just innate and in us because we don't understand it at all. We are psychologically not built to understand it. And that just creates fear, I believe, especially when it hits close to home. It makes us most fearful because we realize it could happen to us anytime, any place. And so it's a reality slap for you when it's a loved one that dies as well. What are your thoughts on funeral homes not having prep areas on site, but having a separate center that does nothing but prep? I love it. When you have a large, so Michigan has a law in place that you can't have a care center only, like a centralized embalming location. So you can't have one trade embalmer that does all the embalming at one location for all these funeral homes. But you can have a funeral home that has multiple locations and you care for everybody at one of the funeral homes in a care center. It's very smart. It's very functional. It's very cost effective, because why would you have staff at all these different places, preps at all the different places, when you can have all your staff that care for the deceased in one spot? It's way better. Oh, DeWaiter. Yeah, that's one of my biggest. I love the advice of not my loss and dealing with children. Thank you. So that is one of the biggest things I when I'm teaching or around people, and if they're having some hard, like those first couple weeks, especially being around different things, is letting them know, repeating in your head, this is not my loss. This is not my loss. This is not my child. This is not my dad. This is not my mom. This is not my sister. This is not my friend. Reminding yourself, this is not your loss. This is not your pain. This is not yours to carry. You are there to serve the family when you're there working. Because if you get caught up in their emotion, you cannot do your job and take care of them. So then nobody is running the ship if you're caught up in emotion. So repeating that keeps you focused and kind of in the moment. It doesn't mean that you're heartless. It doesn't mean you're not going to feel things, but sometimes we get kind of swept away, and oh my gosh, and it kind of pulls you back to reality. Hey, Steph Schmeckel, is that how you say it? Do you believe COVID will continue and possibly get bad again? So COVID is a virus, and yes, it will continue because it's a virus. It's not going to leave ever now that it's here. So this is not my sandwich. Thank you. Yeah, I need to add some more to them. Oh, that reminds me. So I have an extra copy of this book. It's Your Funeral by Kathy Benjamin. It's a super fun book. It covers a million things within the funeral business, but kind of in a lighthearted, fun sort of way. I'm going to give it away. I haven't figured out what to do to give this away though. So got to figure out a little giveaway thing. But did I say it's not your funeral? It's your funeral. It's your funeral. Adolf Joe Biden. Well, polio did not leave. There is still polio. It's not like it's not an existing thing, but it has been eradicated. But in places, people can still get polio. So that's not quite true. Not my circus, not my monkeys. I know. Was been the most unexpected or strange item to be placed in the casket? I had a cat that had died a few years before the deceased, and they took and put it in a 5-gallon bucket with a lid and set it out in the shed. End of story. That's what they did. And then when the person died a few years later, they brought the bucket in and put it in the casket. We did not open the bucket because it was gross. It was bad smell. And so I would have to say that was one of the funkier things that happened. I have a question. Hello. Hey, Mary Louise. Oh, thank you. Go ahead and post your question. If someone is being cremated but have a viewing first, are they cremated in the same casket? Yes, but it also might be the inside of the casket. It might be a rental where the inside slides out and they're cremated in that. But what they're laying in is what they'll be cremated in typically. As a mortician embalmer, do you have to recertify? We don't recertify. Some states have continuing education. So you have to get so many continuing ed hours within a year or 2 years, depending on the state. And then you have to just repay for a new license every few years in your state. But you don't have to like take the national board again or anything like that. Do you have a certain aspect or point of your job that makes you a little anxious or on edge? I would have to say some families I meet with, just going in when there's precursors of knowing that they're going to be a little bit of a challenge makes me not nervous, but just not wanting to be there, not wanting to do that. Opening a body bag, that has never gone away. You just don't know what you're going to see. So I always like hold my breath before I unzip the bag because you don't know. The water cremation tank looks small. Is it a challenge to place the body in? No, they're really big. The basket seems a bit narrow, but standard bodies will fit in it. I thought renting a casket wasn't allowed because of the bodily fluids. No, you can rent caskets, but the portion of the casket you rent is the shell. The interior that the person touches is a one-time use. You can't reuse a full casket and take a person out and put a new person in. That is illegal. You can rent a casket though, which is just the exterior, and the interior goes with the person. Oh, yay, Tay. That's awesome. You're going to be shadowing. I have a shadow come in, spend some time with me next week. And let me tell you, it took over a year for us to get this set up. So this young man was persistent, but not pushy. He's super kind, excited to work with him next week and to let him see kind of what we do around the funeral home. But just because you want a shadow doesn't mean it's happening tomorrow. It may take a long time for the funeral director to be able to have you spend that time with him. And I know that sounds weird, but if I'm meeting 3 families in a day, I don't have time to explain anything I'm doing. I don't have time to like worry if the person's with me or where they are or making sure. I just need to focus on what I got to do. And I don't want somebody shadowing me, unfortunately, because I have to move so fast and do so many things. And a shadow is going to have questions, and I want to be able to answer questions. And if it's that busy, which it has been a lot in the last 2 years, it's been challenging to have a shadow come in. So I'm glad I'm able to do that next week. What time? All right, I'm going to do like 2 more questions, and then I think I need to log off to get some other stuff done. Steph, have you ever visited Cave Hill Cemetery in Louisville? I have not, but I will tell you. So I went down to the college, which is right across the river in Indiana there, and did a video there and took a wrong turn, ended up having to go across the bridge into Louisville, ended up on a one-way street going the wrong way. And thought, I saw signs for Cave Hill Cemetery, because isn't Muhammad Ali buried there? Or somebody who's there? Somebody's buried in Cave Hill. I'm thinking Martin Luther King Jr. or Muhammad Ali. I feel like one of them. You'll have to tell me stuff. And so I thought, I'll go visit the grave. After, I don't do bridges. No, like pure anxiety. I don't like driving across bridges. And cool. Okay, it is Muhammad Ali. And then hitting the one way, I just wanted to get out of the city and get back to my hotel as fast as I could. So I said, Pig, where do you live? That's a deal. My autograph or the person's? I can't sell my autograph, can I? That seems weird. What does my autograph do? I don't know. I have been to Crown Hill. I have a whole video on it. Whole video. So go check out that video. In the Philippines, I'm not sure how I would get it to the, I don't know what it costs to get it to the Philippines, but I could try. Email me. Okay. Do I believe in mediums? I was actually supposed to do a reading with one on Monday. I don't know. I'm pretty skeptical. Clayton, don't yell at me. I'm kind of skeptical about mediums still. I believe in some kind of a paranormal, something around us and things. So I don't know. I've never had a reading that really hit on something that I was like, yes, that is, whoa. It was kind of, I don't know. Yeah. So hopefully eventually we'll do a reading, and maybe I'll film one with the one person I know. I feel like for me to do a reading with somebody, you guys can know me too well when it comes to some of the losses in my life and who is already in heaven or a spirit or however you want to look at it. So I feel like it's kind of skewed that way. Steph, if I ever come back down there, deal. We will do that. Amber, I don't know who that is. That's interesting. Yeah, I think they're kind of fun. I'm cool with all the fun stuff. I'll try different things, once or whatever. Robert, I have finished the every state video. I think I only had like 2 or 3 states I didn't do. And so I've kind of closed the chapter on that series, even though I didn't get the last couple states in. So Drew, thank you. I knew MLK didn't sound right, but I feel like Muhammad Ali doesn't sound right either. He had a summer home up here not too far from where I am, or another home. And we always were like, what if he dies up here? That'd be kind of like neat for it to happen here, because then somebody local would probably care for him here. And yeah. Oh, very cool, Mary Louise. Just go walk in and ask them. It's honestly the easiest way. Look professional, look, the part, look like you're taking it seriously, and go talk to them. I think it'd be great. Oh, Drew, I don't know when I'm coming back to Georgia. Hey, Tiffany. Yeah, I'm about to sign off, but good to see you. Hope you're doing good. So I'm going to log off. Thank you guys. Headed to Pittsburgh later this week. Don't know if I'll have any time to do like a meet and greet thing. It's from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. I am in classes and stuff. So it's going to be pretty busy. But yeah. Any visits to New York? I've never been to New York, so I need to. That'd be fun. Oh, yeah, I have been to New York, not New York City. I've been to upstate where Little Miss Funeral lives. So, but it was for like 3 hours. So I don't know if that counts. All right, guys, have a great week. Send me questions via email, Kari@KariTheMortician.com if you have questions you want answered in next week's live, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.